There's this guy in Virginia's 8th Congressional District who was running for that seat by the name of Michael Webb. He was running as a Republican, but he was defeated in the primary, so he's running as an independent now. He came to our attention a few months ago because he was touting his career in the military. He claims that he was an airborne ranger and a major in the Army Reserves. Those are the opening words of a blog that stood up on May 17th, 2016, on a blog site called thisain'thell.us, operated by John Lillian. One day after Mike Webb achieved international notoriety for posting a screenshot that revealed internet browser tabs suggesting pornographic content. It mattered not to anyone that the computer that Mike Webb used could not even view any type of videos, and no one believed his, quote, curious by nature, unquote, explanation for what he called his research. And everyone laughed when he mentioned the topic of religion and God, denouncing him as a hypocrite. The picture looked grim, and long-standing critics rejoiced publicly that Mike Webb was finally getting the attention that he deserved. He was finally famous, and not in a good way. You might say it was prophesied, because one critic, Robert Kenyon, said just weeks before that he could not wait until after the convention was over when we could deal with this clown. And most experts predicted that after his 15 minutes of fame were over, Mike Webb would have a good cry, go away, head down, as would befit a fraud who had stolen valor as a fake CI Ranger. But almost half a year later, the son of a preacher man, an Army Ranger, appears to be a very resilient spirit because he is still here and still standing and still speaking out for what is right. Is that just an accident? Romans 8 in the New Testament doctrine of the Christian faith tradition says, if God is for us, who can be against us? And while in a life of uncommon luck, Mike Webb has been blessed beyond measure on several occasions, born to a privileged life that blessed him with international travel experiences as a child and superior education and enviable connections. 20 years of military service during the highest operations tempo in our nation's history, causing everyone who served during that time to deploy to a combat theater except him, despite being in combat and deployable units at the head of the fight. And despite having many friends and family who worked in both the Pentagon and the World Trade Center, finding all souls spared on 9/11, when our nation stood still. A guardian angel appears to have run a blocking pattern, preventing his foes from sacking this unlikely quarterback or tackling this unlikely running back. So, VA 8. All minds are on the World Series now, but are you ready for some football? Let me tell you about our defensive line. Everyone knows that before the week was out after what seemed like the end of Mike Webb's public career. He was sharing jokes with Jimmy Kimmel on late night television. If you don't know, just Google, because it is the only thing that you might find referring to this guy in Virginia's 8th Congressional District who is running for that seat. But why, in the course of this political campaign, has Mike Webb been a lightning rod for celebrities like Jimmy Kimmel, attracting a blue dot Twitter following, appearing in more celebrity selfies than imaginable, picking up celebrity endorsements, and appearing to live the life of a rock star? Maybe because faith rocks, dude. If God is for us, get the screenshot. But you have to admit, it's pretty unbelievable, right? Right? But did you know that the conservative blog that trashed Mike Webb before the nomination convention has since become defunct? Out of business. Gone. Did you know that the lair where the young Republicans taunted Mike Webb, called him chicken, and savagely tried to embarrass and discourage him, while the Republican nominee, Charles Hernick, even claimed that he declined to come? That same place has closed its doors to business since then. Is that a coincidence? Is it a coincidence that Mike Webb's Baptist preacher father, in the beginning days of his ministry, had a hurricane tear through the town of his church, ripping the roofs off some houses where members of a youth group had decided to challenge the new pastor and deny the existence of God? Is it a coincidence that that same pastor who preached against the evils of alcoholic beverage consumption to his congregation, whose members often visited one of the two bars in close proximity to the church directly after service, experienced a divine sense of relief when one bar owner went out of business and gave the property to the church, a property that was later used by that church to distribute food and clothing to the poor in their Dorcas room, while the other bar around the corner shortly later burned completely to the ground while church was still in service on a Sunday morning, with a fire station directly 1 block away and around the corner. Maybe it's because faith rocks, dude. If God is for us, get the screenshot. But you have to admit, it is pretty unbelievable, right? Right? Did you know that immediately after going viral to the world, Mike Webb miraculously lost 50 pounds, 1/5 his body weight? Did you know that he felt inspired shortly thereafter to run to the King Street metro station to get to his next church service on time after departing morning service at the First Baptist Church in Alexandria, and ran that 2-mile distance in a suit and cowboy boots in less than 12 minutes, a sub-6-minute mile pace that he could not run in high school? Did you know that a few Sundays later, he just felt the inspiration of God to run a half marathon while sitting in church, and completed a half marathon, 13.1 miles, in Greenbelt, Maryland, with the DC Roadrunners Club that afternoon. Did you hear that? That afternoon. Did you know that a few Sundays later, despite still being overweight by body mass index, and despite doing no distance running training, Mike Webb beat 75% of the military members who ran the 32nd Army 10-miler. Don't they run and exercise every day? Did you know that Mike Webb, who retired from the Army Reserves, a weekend warrior with a severe incapacity that made him physically unable to complete a standard Army physical fitness test, recently, 6 years after retirement, performed so many push-ups in the Veteran Suicide Awareness Campaign in less than 2 minutes that he would have received a perfect score if he was still in the military taking the fitness test. Maybe, just maybe, it's because faith rocks, dude. If God is for us, get the screenshot. But you have to admit, it is pretty unbelievable, right? Right? Did you know that Mike Webb was on a Greyhound bus bound for Richmond on the exact same day that a deranged man set off a shooting spree at the Richmond Greyhound bus station? Did you know that the bus that Mike Webb was supposed to arrive on would have placed him in the station at the time of the shooting? But for some still unknown reason, that bus was canceled, causing Mike Webb to arrive moments after the shooting was over. Did you know that over 20 persons who arrived on the northbound bus from Atlanta got a sudden urge to leave the bus station to go to the convenience store up the street, a 7-Eleven, shortly before shots rang out? Have you ever been to the Greyhound station in Richmond and traveled there on a Greyhound bus? Well, if you haven't, let me tell you, the bus does not pass any convenience stores on the way to the station. But these 20 persons walked up the street on faith that one would be further down the road. Just like that. And that decision may have saved their lives. Maybe it's because faith rocks, dude. If God is for us, get the screenshot? But still, you have to admit, it is pretty unbelievable, right? Right? Did you know that weeks before 49 persons were killed by an Islamic jihadist terrorist and agent of ISIS in a nightclub in Orlando, Mike Webb had re-announced his gun violence prevention plan from January and renamed it the Sentinel Program. Did you know that one of the first reports of the shooting in Orlando was reported by that town's hometown newspaper, coincidentally also named, guess what? The Sentinel. Did you know that immediately before the massacre, Mike Webb was on Capitol Hill trying to urge members of Congress to adopt his plan immediately to avert the next tragedy, rather than wait to get elected to enact a plan he believed that the nation needed right now. And that before he left Capitol Hill that day, the White House went into lockdown because an intruder had infiltrated the security veil. Did you know that one day before the deadly Hurricane Matthew, which had mounted a death toll in the thousands buried in mass graves in Haiti and the Caribbean, and was predicted to touch ground in the U.S. and ravage southern counties in Florida, Mike Webb got on social media and prayed that the deadly storm would, 1, reduce in power, and 2, divert east to run up the shoreline rather than smashing inland and causing death and destruction. Did you know that when the storm followed that exact path for which Mike Webb had prayed to spare the tree that a local pastor had planted in Orlando on the birth of his son, storm chasers and professional meteorologists explained their erroneous predictions by stating that even their complex models and computers could not exactly forecast the path of a tropical storm because there were too many variables to consider. Well, perhaps too many for a computer, but not for the mind of an all-knowing and all-seeing God. Maybe it's because faith rocks, dude. If God is for us, get the screenshot. But you have to admit, it is pretty unbelievable, right? Right? In late January, almost February, Scott McCaffrey, an editor and Northern Virginia reporter covering the emerging candidacy of Mike Webb, who had debuted in the local press 2 days before Christmas, wrote, "Bookies probably wouldn't even lay odds on the chance of Republicans picking up the 8th congressional district seat. It seems so out of reach." But earlier that month, in the January that brought the blizzard that shut down D.C. after the March for Life, and found one congressional candidate who had attended that march, bounding over snowdrifts to meet local residents. The odds of winning the record jackpot Powerball lottery were 1 in 292 million. Though are some pretty tough odds to beat. But would you believe Mike Webb picked a winning number in that jackpot lottery? But if you think that is incredible, around the same time, Mike Webb was racing to bring a spectacular prayer breakfast to his community and develop a 4-point prayer plan for his prayer brigade, announcing his plan on social media. But wait, listen to this. A few weeks later, a local pastor who never saw Webb's plan but developed a sermon from his reading of scripture about the jailing of Paul and Silas and their release when the gates of the jail just opened for them, announced the exact same prayer plan to his congregation. 1, pray daily. 2, pray in teams. 3, pray publicly. And 4, join in song. Well, we calculated the odds of that chance coincidence, and the odds of that happening without collusion between Mike Webb and that pastor is 1 in over 8 billion. So what is the trick? How did he do it? Smoke and mirrors? Sleight of hand? Misdirection? A false bottom or trap door? A forced card or trick deck? Give it your best shot, but not even the National Geographic Society wants to take on the challenge to debunk any of this. And they debunked the Shroud of Turin and the remains of an ark on Mount Ararat. Ask them. We asked them. They declined. In fact, Mike Webb studied stage illusion as a child, and even he is dumbfounded. Maybe it's because faith rocks, dude. If God is for us, get the screenshot. But you have to admit it. Still, it is pretty unbelievable, right? Right? Unbelievable, right? Look, no one is trying to hustle you here or twist your arm to do something that you just don't want to do. You are perfectly free to vote for whoever you want because it is a free country. And Mike Webb believes that. If it makes you feel better, I will specifically tell you right now not to vote for Mike Webb. And you can go vote for whoever you want. You can vote for Mickey Mouse. You can vote for someone else. Just go and follow the dictates of your informed judgment and conscience as you support and advocate policies and issues and the candidates of your choice. But will you do Mike Webb a favor? Will you do your family a favor? Will you do your community a favor? Will you do our nation a favor? Will you do our future and our children and our progeny a favor? Will you give faith a try? You just might like the results. And when you do it, expect a miracle. Mike Webb did. And it did not turn out so bad after all. What do you think? So, that's the story. The whole story. Politicians will say anything. And I didn't think it could be until it happened to me. But I have to tell you, yeah, baby, that's the mojo that I'm talking about. Major in the majors. Let's make Americans great again. I am Major Mike Webb, and I am running for U.S. Congress. Honest. Oh, and one more thing. Every year, as the season of autumn approached, my dad preached his favorite sermon of all from 2 Timothy, titled, Come Before Winter. At the close of a long campaign, bitterly fought, and given the offer that I have presented to you, I think that that passage is appropriate here. It reads, in relevant part, I charge thee, therefore, before God and the Lord Jesus Christ, who shall judge the quick and the dead at his appearing and his kingdom. Preach the word, be instant in season, out of season, reprove, rebuke, exhort, with all long-suffering and doctrine. For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lusts shall they heap to themselves teachers having itching ears. And they shall turn away their ears from the truth, and shall be turned unto fables. But watch thou in all things, endure afflictions, do the work of an evangelist, make full proof of thy ministry. For I am now ready to be offered, and the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Henceforth, there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day, and not to me alone, but unto all them also that love his appearing. Do thy diligence to come shortly unto me. Do thy diligence to come before winter. I'm Mike Webb. Give faith a try.
This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.